You already know, it is that time of year. Tomorrow's Christmas, so for Christmas Eve, I got a little banger for y'all. We are going to be reading a Christmas story. Now, this is not an original Christmas story. This is an elf Christmas story. I did not make this Christmas story. I found it on the internet. The name of the story is Tiny the Christmas Elf. Okay. It was made by Story Berries. Okay. I don't own the rights, but that's who it was made by. Once upon a time, Tiny was a Christmas elf, and he was very, very tiny. As tiny as a grain of rice, so small that if someone sneezed, they might breathe him in on the and whoosh him out on the chew. Absolute certified storyteller right here. Tiny didn't like being tiny. He wanted to be as big and round as Santa Claus. Don't be silly, said his mama. Santa Claus is Santa Claus, and you are you. Not everyone is made to be big, round, just like not everyone is made to be tiny. But I feel like nobody notices me, said Tiny. Everyone knows about Santa Claus, but whoever thinks about a tiny, tiny Christmas elf. Alright, we're about to take these glasses off because it makes it very hard to read. And I'm sorry if I look crazy or short right now, because I'm using the front-facing camera. I really need to get a mirror so I can see what's happening. Alright, let's continue with Tiny, the tiny elf. People don't notice Santa Claus because he's big and round, said his mama. They notice him because he does nice things for people. He brings presents to little children who mightn't have money for presents. Mightn't. I know. It's a real word. It's there. It has to be real. He brings happiness to people who feel sad the rest of the year. It's a nice thing being Santa Claus, of course, but it's also nice being you. Tiny the Christmas elf thought about this. He would like to do nice things like Santa Claus, but how could he? He was tiny. If he tried to steer a Christmas sleigh, it would carry her off into the clouds because the wind was stronger than he was. If he tried to wrap up a present, he would get himself stuck in the sticky tape. Maybe it was just a matter of mind over matter, he thought then. Perhaps he only needed to believe in himself. Facts. So he wrote an application to be one of the Christmas elves who helped make the children's toys. Perhaps he could paint the very fine numbers on the barcodes of the toys. Word. But his writing was so tiny that nobody noticed it. That's tough. So now it was Christmas Eve, and Tiny the Christmas elf was sitting on the roof of his tiny house having a little cry to himself. After a while, he stopped crying. Nobody cries forever. But then he noticed the strangest thing. He wasn't crying anymore, but he could still hear a crying sound. And then Tiny the Christmas elf realized that it wasn't him crying, it was someone else. Damn, who could it be? Tiny looked around him. He climbed up from his tiny house and saw a windowsill. And in the windowsill was a face leading into a hand. It was a wet face. It was a little boy. A sad, sad little boy crying on Christmas Eve. That's tough. Tiny the Christmas elf climbed up to the windowsill and stood in front of the little boy's face. He was as tiny as an ant, so he held onto the window frame tightly in case the little boy breathed too deeply and whooshed him up. "Hello," he said in his tiny, tiny voice. "What's wrong? Why are you crying on Christmas Eve?" And incredibly, the little boy heard him. "Hello, funny little elf," sniffed the boy. "I'm crying because it's Christmas Eve, and I'm so excited about Santa Claus coming that I can't sleep. But my mom and dad told me that if I don't go to sleep, Santa won't come. And I'm trying and trying, but I just can't go to sleep. Santa will be here. How can I possibly go to sleep when Santa is here?" "That is a conundrum," said Tiny the Christmas elf. "It is true that Santa can't come if children are awake, and it is true that it's really hard to sleep when you're excited. sing you a little song in your ear to help you go to sleep? Do you think that might help solve the problem? The little boy thought about it, and it did seem like a good idea. He nodded and dried his eyes. Together, they went back to his bed. Tiny the Christmas elf waited until the boy had snuggled up in his blankets, and then crept into his ear and began singing the calmest and sweetest songs to him. Before too long at all, the little boy was asleep. It seemed Tiny's little voice was perfectly suited for lullabies. When Santa's sleigh appeared at the window, Tiny, the Christmas elf, skittered over to the sash and told Santa what he'd done. Santa thought it was the nicest and most useful thing he'd ever heard a Christmas elf do. And so Tiny, the Christmas elf, now accompanies Santa every Christmas Eve as they visit all the houses. If any children are still awake when Santa arrives, Tiny slips in and sings a little song in their ear. They are soon asleep and dreaming the most wonderful dreams, and everyone is happy, none happier than Tiny, the Christmas elf. Isn't that sweet? So what do we learn about Tiny the Christmas elf? He's a little weird. Let's see if there's another Christmas story that I can read you in this video to help you go to sleep. Okay, so I have just found the most OG Christmas poem that there is, and I'm gonna read it to you. It was the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas would soon be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap, when out of the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what's the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the stash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear, what a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver, so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick, more rapid than eagles, in his courses they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, oh Comet, on Cupid, on Donner, on Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. Ooh, killed it. As dry leaves in that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mouth to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then in twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed in all fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, the stump of a pipe he held in his teeth. Wait, his droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up to the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew, like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Okay. That was one of the hardest things I've ever read on the go. But I hope that you enjoy, because I know I did. Have a Merry Christmas. Sleep tight.